does a 16th century religious reformer have to do with reading and gender equality? Come on, we'll show you. So it's Germany, 1517, and a young disenfranchised monk just put a poster on a church door. And essentially the poster says, how does the church suck? Let me count the ways. It gets all the way to 95. Now, of the many problems Martin had with the church, a lot of them boil down to actions versus intention. You see, a lot of Catholic theology centers around actions. To the Catholic Church, believing simply isn't enough. Faith without works is dead. I can say that I'm a good person, but if I kick puppies every time I walk down the street, does that make it so? And I think that's one of the issues we're facing as a society right now. You can claim to be a Christian all you want, but if you never do any Christian things, what does that title even mean? I can stand in a garage and call myself a car, but that doesn't make it so. So sure, you can have the best of intentions, but if they never turn into action, but that's also why things like indulgences were so popular. The idea of paying for the forgiveness of sins might be cynical, but the action, giving to the church, is righteous. With the righteous action helping to undo the sinful action. But the idea of asking for a spiritual handout without some sort of act of contrition in return? I don't know, has a very DEI feel to it, if you know what I mean. And if acts are important, ritual acts are even more important. So things like going to church every Sunday are paramount. To which Martin Luther says, horse shit. The church has it fucked up. But it also makes sense, because this is how the church derives its power. I'll explain. See, every Sunday you gotta go to church. And when you're there, you listen to the priest read from the Bible. In Latin, which you don't speak, but also you can't read. So the priest interprets the Bible for you and tells you what you need to know and the lessons you need to learn. And then you tell the priest what sins you committed, and he tells you what to do to get right with God, and then you pay taxes to him. Martin Luther looked at the system and said, wait a second, why exactly do we need the priesthood? Now, a priest's response to this might be, you need me because you are a fucking idiot who can't read. So how are you going to interpret the Bible correctly? To which Martin Luther might reply, you know who didn't have priests? Jesus, or the apostles, or their followers. But the priesthood is a system constructed by man. And like everything, if it is constructed by man, it is flawed. And so maybe we just cut the priesthood out, and we can just read and interpret the Bible for ourselves. And this is where timing is key, because before this time period, the priest might respond, you idiot, there aren't enough Bibles in the world for everybody to read one on their own. But what happens to roll into Europe about 20 years prior to this? Holy shit, it's the printing press. Now, printing enough Bibles for everybody to get their own isn't an issue. So it looks like we can read the Bible on our own, says Martin Luther. Checkmate, bitches. And with the ability to read the Bible on our own, we can interpret it on our own. We don't need you putting your own little spin on the stories telling us what we should take away from it. And because of this biblical reading, we will develop an independent faith for our God. And it's through this faith that God's grace will be bestowed upon us, not through our actions, idiot. What are you going to do? Work your way into heaven? It seems a little cocky if you ask me. You're telling me a person, a fallen creature, can do such good works to impress the divine creator of the universe enough to get you your own grace? It's not a gift that is given because you fall in line and think what the divine creator of the universe thinks. Y'all are so up your asses. Now, an unintended consequence of this that the church has been trying to undo ever since, because you could read and interpret the Bible for yourself, the ability for everybody to read became essential. And this meant everybody, including women, because as inconvenient as that fact is, slightly over half the population is in fact female. And whether or not you care about your wives or daughters going to heaven, you probably want your mama there. And so all of a sudden this hippie German dude is defacing church property with his woke propaganda, saying the church, the main purveyor of authority, doesn't need to be here. And the information around which they base their lives should be freely available to everybody, even women. And so how did the church respond to this lunatic? We shall see.